We are pressed for time. Maybe one or two questions from the audience. Comments or questions to Professor Huang and Professor De Castro? Yes, please.
I'd like to ask Professor Wong a question. That is, he had the advantage of working both in the United States and in Taiwan. And I'm wondering if he saw any differences, especially in the early formation that he emphasized, where one society could learn from the other.
It's going to be a very difficult question to answer, because in any society, it's a matter of percentages, I would say. Perhaps in Taiwan, over the last 22 years, I see perhaps a greater percentage of violations of research misconduct than I have seen in the States. And I was closely associated with UPenn and Duke University. But recently, Duke had a huge scandal that actually tarnished the university, the medical school, because first of all, it was bad behavior and it was bad response from the university. And actually, something as big as that actually would wipe out everything that we actually worked for previously. But here, I think you see small violations and you also see some bigger violations. And in the US, in Harvard recently, there's this, I guess, behavioral psychologist who also is a problem. And I think science misconduct is universal. And it's just a matter of how much you see in any society. But I think you probably see that in England, see that in Europe, see that in Asia. And currently, I know from talking to several journal editors that there's this greater onslaught of papers presented to major journals from, say, Asia, because Asian universities have now become very keen on the competition, making it within the top 100 universities. So there's that pressure coming from the institution and even from the ministry. Because if the ministry says, if you publish a certain amount of paper and you become one of the top 100 universities, you're going to be getting greater reward. This 500 E in 5-year period has a negative effect. So what I think ought to be done is, people that I know that I have worked for, like Barry Blumberg, if he had made a mistake, there would have been no hepatitis B virus discovered. And George Hitchings and Trudy Alien would be very truthful people, and I knew that because I watched them, and that influenced me. If they lied, there would have been no drugs for infections, drugs for transplant, immune suppressions. And the other person that I worked for that had been critically truth-seeking, it was David Hungerford, who discovered Philadelphia chromosome, which to this day is still the most important markers of cancer, and for which a new drug has been developed, and is probably the most useful drug in cancer treatment today. You probably heard of this, imatinib for chronic myelogenous leukemia, where the drug acts on the tyrosine kinase level of this cell proliferation. So I would say that mentorship is important. The reward system is important, and the the prevalence of violation really depends on how the reward system is developed. In Taiwan, I see certain institutions that are big on rewards, monetary rewards, in one form or another. And I see in those institutions greater misconduct, greater number of misconduct. So I truly believe that the environment has a tremendous influence. Now, the character building from childhood on up is also very important. My son is a researcher, is in genomic research. And what he's doing now, I think to me is wasteful, because he's writing computer programs that would detect errors or misconduct. And I think to me it's wasteful, because why do we want to spend our time working on that? But he's now very proud of it, because he saw the scandal at Duke and he wanted to do something to change it. And in my talk, I mentioned that while monitoring is important, quality control is important, but I think the first thing to do is not to make errors, not to have misconducts, rather than having them and then try to correct them. I would say in Taiwan, the reason why Minister Cheng is so keen on safeguarding research misconduct is because he himself sees a lot of it being done here right now. But I would say it is universal. It's in the US and it's in Taiwan.
Yeah. Let's have about 10-minute break. Come back at 11:30. Okay?